Hello there, lovely people. It's Alex from Nintendo Live here, and I'm very pleased to announce that my favorite game of all time is now available on Nintendo Switch Online. Yes, Banjo-Kazooie is now available on Nintendo Switch, Nintendo Switch Online, Nintendo 64, Nintendo Switch Online expansion pack. Top quality naming there, Nintendo. Now, yes, I would say, I mean, it's a very difficult decision, but I would say that Banjo-Kazooie is my favorite game of all time, and incidentally, I don't think it's the best game of all time. Like, Majora's Mask and probably Breath of the Wild's getting there, I believe are, well, we'll just go with N64. I believe Majora's Mask is my favorite Zelda game on the Nintendo 64, easily. I prefer it over Ocarina of Time, but Ocarina of Time is the better game. There's a distinction. One's objective, one's subjective. And to give you an idea of how much I love Banjo-Kazooie, I have 3 unrelated pieces of paraphernalia for the game. I say unrelated, this is technically kind of related to this now. It's a big bloomin' statue that holds a controller, Banjo controller, and an amiibo. And I display all 3 of these proudly. And I'm not big on displaying gaming stuff. I mean, I know. But the thing is that I've never really been big on sort of like the whole wearing my hobbies on my sleeves kind of thing. It's more of a private thing, and yeah, this is an exception, I know. But hey, this is a backdrop. If it weren't for, you know, me doing all this, I probably wouldn't display all of this. Certainly not like this. Maybe a few select things. Everything else would probably be neatly and tidily sort of put to one side. I'm just not big on displaying things, and the fact that I've got 3 Banjo items that I display proudly, that's a big deal. Also, do you have any idea how much I have to like something to wear a shirt of it? So I hope that's clear. I love Banjo-Kazooie. I love it to death. I even love nuts and bolts. Although I do agree that it shouldn't have been a Banjo game. And I could just sit here and gush about how much I love the original game for God knows how long. So I will. Banjo-Kazooie is a bit of a strange game in my memory, and not just because, I mean, I'll tell you the story. I got Banjo-Kazooie, get the cartridge. I got this original cartridge, this very one here. This isn't one I bought later because I traded it in or anything. This original cartridge, I got this when I was 8 years old on my 8th birthday. I asked for it because my brother said, the magazines say it's good, so I thought that's good enough for me, let's go with that one. But I had no idea what to expect. I knew that it was gonna be, well, I didn't know the term at the time, but a 3D platformer, and I got it, and I fell in love with it on my 8th birthday. The same day my grandfather died, so there was a lot going on that day. But I became absolutely besotted with it, the world and the density, and I'll get on to just how bloomin' fantastic it is, even just from a purely analytical point of view. But I was just absolutely in love with it, and I've loved it ever since. I eventually got Tooie when I borrowed it from my next door neighbor and never gave it back. That's a good way to get cheap games, by the way. I spoke to him years later. He's fine with it. And I was quiet for years. I got Banjo Pilot a while ago. I've never played Grunty's Revenge. I think the thing is that the original was so good, they could never really top it. And I think that's one of the reasons why it got released on Xbox Live Arcade. But you know what? That version has some minor differences, and as a result, I can't stand it. Alright, that's an exaggeration. That version is completely fine. It is the same game at the end of the day. It is Banjo-Kazooie, and that's what counts. But they made some changes, some for the good, some mostly for the bad, in my opinion. Like, the fact that you collect a note and then it's permanent. What's up with that? I mean, I know it's a bit of a joke, but genuinely, the whole point was it was a challenge to get all 100 notes in one go. Like getting 100 coins in Super Mario 64, only arguably slightly more difficult because there's only 100 in a world, and when you leave, you've got to start again, or if you die, you've got to start again. That's a challenge! It's not just another collectible to pick up. I have heard this morning that apparently it was supposed to be a permanent collectible every time, but something due to memory limitations, I don't know how true that is. But if that's the case, an accident resulted in a better system. As well as like Banjo and Kazooie's faces with the health icon and stuff like that. Widescreen's good. The intro, oh my god, how did you get that so wrong, 4J? If you don't know, the intro in the Xbox Live Arcade version is just like, it's completely out of sync. The original, the animations all took the N64 slowdown into account, and so it was synced perfectly with that. And then they didn't adjust it when they took it over to the Xbox, which the 360, which ran it perfectly, obviously, and it meant that the music was way behind the animation. Here's a clip. That's disgusting. And I'm super pleased to say the NSO version, perfect. I haven't even noticed any emulation errors. I've noticed that when you swim underwater, there's like a bit at the border here, which isn't like covered in the blue filter, which says you're underwater. That could have been in the original. I really would have to go back to the original cartridge with an HDMI thing to probably know that. But I don't have an Ultra HDMI, or whatever it's called, I've forgotten. And I probably could have checked and done my research for this video, but I didn't. In my opinion at the moment, the NSO version is the version. It's the original art and everything, hasn't had anything changed to it. It is just as I remember it. And there are some people who prefer the Xbox Live Arcade version, and that's fine. That's fine. I will shun you in public, but that's fine. It is a perfectly fine way to play the game. I'll say that time and time again. But personally, as somebody who is so bloomin' diehard, I prefer the original, and this is a lot closer. Incidentally, I am aware that that's the splash screen from the Xbox Live Arcade version. It was just a good thing to have in the background. And Kazooie's beak has the cursor on it. But what's so amazing about Banjo-Kazooie compared to something like Super Mario 64, another classic, brilliant, like it is the, I described this in a recent second opinion thing on a review we got on the site as the watershed for 3D platformers, because it was. No one had ever really successfully done a 3D platformer, and all of a sudden, it was bloomin' amazing. Like, it wasn't even just like, oh, this is good enough. Like, it stands up even today. It's got some clunk in it, as all older games do. But my god, that was like, whoa, where did this come from? And I believe the main reason for that is Mario's movement. Everyone remembers Mario's movement being so fluid, so easy, so straightforward. And yeah, you know, the worlds are fun as well, and some of the enemies. But I mean, you compare Super Mario 64 to Banjo-Kazooie, and Mario 64 is like mega stiff in comparison. Like, the characters have some slightly jankily translated lines. I mean, Yoshi's got a typo. It's like, Mario, that you? And, you know, you don't get any of that in Banjo. But the things that people remember about Banjo is the characters, the worlds, it's the music. Oh my god, the music. The fact that everything's got googly eyes, the level design. It's just, the list is so endless. Like, the animations as well. Banjo runs and you go, whoop, 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 whoop. That's incredible. Mario runs, he just sort of goes, whoop, 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 whoop. And it's fine, it's serviceable, but it's not the whoop, 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 wobbly, bouncy nose that you get with Banjo. Incidentally, Super Mario Odyssey copied that. Mario 64 does so many things really, really well, but I think Banjo does even more, so perfectly. Well, I mean, the thing is that you may argue that some things like the platforming isn't as good as Super Mario 64, so it may not be top of the class in there. But when you combine all of the elements, it's like Breath of the Wild, you know, sort of maybe doesn't have the best combat in an open world game. Some open world games may do better, but everything that it does do is still of so high regard. Its stats are so high overall that it just makes it even better, because there are other games where things are lower, like with Mario 64, the characterization is, it's good enough, you know, it's okay. I'm not saying it's bad by any stretch of the imagination, but you know, it's good. But Banjo, you know, that's how people speak in Banjo-Kazooie. And the music, like, I know I'm comparing a lot to Mario 64, but hey, you know, I'm nothing if not unoriginal. The music in Mario 64 is great, you know, bam, 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 but it gets reused a lot. And it's good, and it's lasted the test of time, absolutely. But Banjo-Kazooie went with a completely different approach, and it's just every single track is an absolute banger. Have a listen to some of these. And that's just a slice. I haven't even talked about the gameplay. The gameplay is excellent, and you know, the characterization helps a lot. And yeah, as I said, the platforming probably isn't quite as good as Mario 64. It's more forgiving, absolutely, because you got Kazooie's. But the flying mechanics, you know, Mario 64 was kind of much more close to a 2D Mario game, unsurprisingly. We get from point A to point B. You know, there's sometimes some puzzle stuff going on, but really it's you've got to go to a certain area, perform a task, and you're done. You know, that's kind of it. With Banjo, you kind of got to work out what you got to do, and you got to explore, and you got to look for things. You're not told where any of the jiggies are. Super Mario 64, it lets you know, like a hop into the volcano, or whatever it's called, hot foot into the volcano. That is a much better title. But Banjo, it's pure exploration. You're just thrown into the world, and it's like, hey, find some jiggies, find some notes, collect some stuff, and then leave when you're ready. There is no, when you collect a jiggy, you stay in the world, so you can collect all the jiggies in one go, except for one world, except for one bloody world. Freeze Easy Peak, you need those super speed trainers, which you don't get until Gobi's Desert. It's fine, but I like getting them all in one go. I think that's honestly the biggest criticism I have about the game. And the cheats as well. Oh my god, in the game you can just type stuff in. There's a sandcastle, right? You go in and it's just got all these letters on the thing, and you get a jiggy from typing in Banjo-Kazooie. It's fairly standard, you do it within a time limit, easy peasy, that's not otherworldly. But then you can just type in the word cheat and then so many different things like that. There's a cheat to give Banjo a big head. There's a cheat to turn Banjo into a washing machine, and he still has all the same moves and everything, but his model's just a washing machine. It's literally, you type in cheat wishy-washy Banjo. I know this stuff. And then you got all the stop and swap stuff, which was this mad idea where you'd take the cartridge of Banjo-Tooie originally, you'd take it out of the N64 and then put Banjo-Kazooie in, and it would read the data. It would be able to hold on to the data for long enough because the N64 could do that, and then subsequent N64s couldn't do it. Well, they could, but only for a second. And they didn't want people damaging stuff. But what an idea! That was pushing so many boundaries, and it's a shame it never really came to fruition. It did in the Xbox Live Arcade version, but after so long, after so many years of what could it have done, it couldn't possibly have lived up to expectations. Even if it had been the best thing ever, it wouldn't have been good enough. And I appreciate that they did it, absolutely, and it kind of sort of put to rest the whole thing, but when you got that level of hype over something that really probably was not going to be that amazing, you were never gonna achieve it. But Stop and Swap, at least on the original cartridge, it's still there in its entirety. The whole point was that you wouldn't be able to get stuff like the ice key without Banjo-Tooie, but you could. You just go into the castle and you type in. Now you can cheat. Now you can see a nice ice key which you can have for free, or out of the sea it rises to reveal more secret prizes. This stuff is burned into my memory. And even though it doesn't really have a use, it's fun. You know what? It's fun to get some eggs that are completely pointless. And it was the fact that you could see, like, the ice key. You could see it, but you could never get it. Punch key, please. Do not rummage in that box. I fully understand the reasoning, but it still baffles me that we've only ever had one re-release of this game until today. And now there's two, and the newest one is slightly better. Because this game is so celebrated in many ways, and in other ways it's kind of forgotten, You talk to people on the internet, you say Banjo-Kazooie, and you get 14 people go, oh, that's the best game ever, that's my favorite game, I love Banjo-Kazooie, isn't it amazing? Sort of at one point, I'm sure it was quite unique to say that, but I'm brutally aware, I'm not exactly a minority here. Everyone bloody loves this game. And yet, we got one re-release on Xbox Live Arcade, which changed arguably more than it should have done, but again, that's all personal. I'm not bitter. It's a fine way to play the game. It's just not the same. Rusty Bucket Bay should make you question life choices. But for a game that everyone loves so much and is held in such high regard as well, critical scores for this game were off the charts. They still are. We recently, as I say, we put up our old review back from 2009. It was a 10 then, it's a 10 now, and I'm giving it a 10, baby, if I could. But this version of the game on the OLED, oh my god, that shows up beautifully on camera. Look at that, I love the OLED screen. It's absolutely wonderful. Like, I haven't encountered any emulation errors, as I mentioned earlier, and it is just, it's superb. It's absolutely superb. And even like the controls arguably could have been a real sticking point. And I must admit, when I started playing it, I was like, oh yeah, how am I going to do things like the Talon Trot and stuff like that? Because as a lot of N64 games are, a lot of commands are tied to the C buttons, and that's, you can work around that, like using the right stick, but it never feels great. But with this version, I mean, you know, some of the C buttons, like I think C down is assigned to X and C left is assigned to Y. So you can hold ZL and press Y and you do the Talon Trot easy peasy, and hold ZL and press X and you'll fart an egg. Don't know why they went with that one. But the actual solution to this is incredibly elegant. If you're doing a backflip or something, ZL-A. If you're doing the Big Buster, ZL-B. You know, easy peasy. But if you want to do the Talon Trot, ZL-Y. But if you want to shoot an egg forward, ZL-ZR-X. The top button. The top C button, fire forwards, press that. Fire backwards, press that. Talon Trot, that. Wonder Wing, that. That is honestly, I know the Xbox Live Arcade version, it did a pretty decent job with, you know, mapping the controls, but this is, I mean, like, it almost feels like the whole holding ZR thing to make the face buttons the C buttons was kind of meant for this, because you're already holding one trigger to crouch. And you sort of think, okay, well, if I'm doing movement-based things, ZL, A, you know, just ZL, or ZLB, or ZLY. If you're doing not, you know, movement-based things, attacks essentially, ZL, ZR, and then the buttons that are associated with it in the past. I don't understand how elegant they managed to make this. Only thing is, right stick, sometimes a little bit sensitive about zooming out, but to be honest, that probably wouldn't be a problem on a Pro Controller. I haven't tried it on a Pro Controller yet, I've just been playing handheld. Playing Banjo on the go, bit of a treat. The resolution's great, it all looks perfect, the game slows down where it's meant to slow down. I know that could arguably be seen as a bad thing, but with certainly things like the intro, that's kind of needed in order to make it actually Banjo. I still can't get over the fact that 4J released that with those errors in the startup, and we're just like, yeah, whatever. My favorite game of all time is now playable in one of the most convenient and one of the best consoles of all time. And I know there's plenty of argument about things like the pricing of the expansion pack and stuff like that, which has been talked about to death and is valid, absolutely valid. I know I did a video recently where I was picking it up, but you know, part of that was, I mean, I still think it's personally worth it when you get on 8 people at once, but at the same time was, you know, was kind of playing it up for the camera. Not that there was a camera involved. Would it be even better if they did this as a standalone re-release, you know, just, you know, download Banjo-Kazooie on Switch? Yeah, absolutely. But it's available. And I'm chuffed to bits. I'm thrilled to bits. I'm so happy. Because I've wanted to go back and play this game plenty of times. Loads of times, in fact. Stop rummaging in boxes! And I've always thought, oh, well, there's the Xbox version and everything like that, but I think because this is so ingrained, this original N64 version is so ingrained in me, I can never quite stop rummaging. You're part of the problem as well. I haven't been back to Banjo for years, and now I can. I could have before, but now I really, really want to. You know, this is how I remember it. 2D sprites, you know, not some weird, like, sort of pre-rendered 3D Banjo face that I just really don't like it. The intro running properly, Banjo's duvet sort of going up in steps because of limited animation. I'm just over the moon. I'm just over the moon. That's basically the point of this video. I'm very happy. I wanted to let you know, and I encourage you to give this a go. If you've got NSO, the expansion pack and everything, my God, give this a go. Certainly if you've never done it before, Jesus, you need to play this game. And if you don't have NSO, you can pick it up on Rare Replay as well. I highly encourage you to play it on any platform. It's available on 3 platforms. Banjo will likely be my favorite game forever, for the rest of my life, unless something truly exceptional comes out. Then again, we've had Breath of the Wild and that hasn't usurped it, because it comes from my childhood, and you can't undo that. You can't overrule that. It came from my childhood, it will remain in my childhood, and it will remain in my life for the rest of my life. And now I can play it on an OLED. Thank you so much for watching this admittedly longer video than I anticipated, but I've got lots to say. If you like this video, then why don't you grab that subscribe button, have it make some sort of jingly noise, and be sure to check out nintendolife.com for all sorts of lovely Nintendo-related content. Thank you again for watching. Bye-bye.